Hi, this is Jacob again. I have not made a video in a really long time. Sorry. The last one I made was part one of what this video is meant to be. So any of you that are actually watching and wondering, hey, what happened? I just got busy. Anyway, for those of you that haven't watched before, I'm Jacob. I'm making a series of videos that are meant to sort of teach people who are coming from a native English speaking background to learn Samoan. My thought is that this is probably most useful to people who are like of Samoan heritage or have married in maybe to a Samoan family and want to learn Samoan. And it's kind of harder as an adult to just pick it up by being around folks, or maybe you've been around it your whole life and still just haven't really managed to pick it up. These are meant to sort of lay out some grammar sort of principles that might be harder just to intuit, and that are hopefully helpful to you and pick up the language. Obviously, I'm Parangi, so I didn't grow up speaking Samoan. I learned it as a missionary when I was 19 and 20. So this is sort of what helped me learn the language, because I probably wouldn't have been able to just pick it up just by hearing it. So anyway, hopefully this is helpful. Again, if this is something you like or you want more of, please hit the thumbs up button, whatever it is, the like, the subscribe button. And definitely leave comments. I'm always interested to see if anyone has things that they'd like to cover. And again, if this is helpful, please let me know. If it's not so helpful, you can definitely let me know too. All right, that being said, today I wanted to cover, it's like the second installment of what I'm calling common homophones. So today I'll talk again about what I mean by homophones. Like I'm making up a term called real homophones versus pseudo homophones. And then I'll be covering ones that deal with A, O, and A. And that'll become clear, I think, as we get to that part in the video. Anyway, what I mean by a real homophone, so in English we have bunches of these, and basically these are words that sound exactly the same. They're probably spelled different, and they mean completely different things. So words that just sound the same, but they mean something different. I'm making up a term called pseudo-homophone. And this is really where a word might have similar spelling, not the exact same spelling, and the pronunciation might be similar, or it might sound the exact same, at least to a non-native speaker, but are actually, in fact, different sounds, at least to a native speaker. They can appreciate that. And really, in Samoan, there are definitely regular sort of real homophones, and there's a bunch of pseudo-homophones, and really this is introduced because Samoan has things in their alphabet or that really just don't exist in English. And really those mainly are glottal stops, which again, I'll show you examples of. And of course, there's other videos that I'll put a link up to here that kind of cover some of the basics that you might want to look at before you're watching this video. Anyway, there's glottal stops and there's macrons. That was the other one I wanted to mention. They don't exist in English. And for a non-native speaker, it can sometimes be difficult to, I guess, differentiate that it's actually a completely different word and it means something completely different. So I'll show you examples. So first ones, I'm going to go over ones that use the letter E. And again, in Samoan, when you see the letter E, the sound that makes is E. So maybe a little bit confusing, but it basically follows Spanish pronunciation for all the vowels. So here I've got basically four forms of how A can be presented as a word all by itself. And so the first one has no macron, no glottal, and then we'll introduce a glottal, we'll introduce a macron, and then we'll introduce a glottal with a macron, and that'll kind of be the format that we follow here. So first, it's just A without a macron or a glottal. So A, first meaning that, well, the one that I thought was probably most common in spoken language is the present or ever-present tense marker. So the example we have here is e la poa le na poa, e la poa le na poa. This translates to basically the pig is fat. I make these up, and so if that's a bad example, whatever. But anyway, A in the very beginning of that sentence, it's a tense marker, and it basically modifies the tense of the verb la poa in this case. Fat is not really a verb in English, but it is a verb in Samoan. So anyway, that's probably the most common example. It's one of 6 different tense markers. Again, maybe I'll link up here to a video on tense markers if that's helpful. All right, next, it can also be a preposed subject marker. And the way that this would kind of translate in English is it would sound like the word by when we use by in front of a subject. And for example, hey, the car was moved by Jane. Jane is the subject in that sentence. The car would be the object. Was moved is the verb. And then by is sort of like just the construction that we use in English. We had the same construction in Samoan, and the way that we convey that by kind of meaning is through this particle a, this preposed subject marker. So our sentence in Samoan is e iloa e ia letala. So e iloa, e is our tense marker there, just like we had in the prior bullet. Iloa is the verb, which means to know. And what you may not appreciate is iloa is actually a perfective verb. And there's a different video that I'll link to up here that talks about perfective verbs. But the point is, using perfective verbs often lends itself to using this sort of passive sentence structure here. So e iloa e ia. A in this case, the second A in this case is that by that preposed subject marker. Ia is the third person pronoun meaning him or her, and then letala is our noun, and that just means the story. So what this translates to is the story is known by him. E iloa e ia letala. So, or is known by him, the story is kind of how it would literally kind of translate across. All right, third meaning of just a without a glottal or a macron. It's a preposed enumerator particle, and so basically it means it's used with numbers to mark numbers. So, for example, for those of you that grow up in Samoan homes, you may have heard this question before. E fio tau sanga. It's a question you sometimes ask to little kids. It just means how old are you? E fia o tau sanga, and really what it translates literally to is e fia. Is that enumerator particle. Fia is it's basically a question place marker for a number. So it probably more literally translates to how many. And then o tausanga, o is a possessive pronoun, an indefinite plural possessive pronoun, which means yours. And then tausanga is years. So it literally translates to like how many are your years. A reply to that question would basically be, you basically use the exact same sentence structure, except instead of saying fia, which is our question place marker for a number, we replace that with a real number. So if you're 5 years old, you would say e lima, lima is 5, e lima o tausanga, e lima o tausanga. So again, e is being used to sort of introduce the number that we're talking about. O is a possessive pronoun, but instead of a second person possessive pronoun like you or yours is, o is a first person possessive pronoun, so it means my. It just means my. And then tausanga again just means years. So e fia o tausanga is a question. How many are your years? E lima o tausanga means is 5, or basically means I'm 5 years old, but it literally translates to there are 5 of my years, kind of. Another example you might hear is in telling time, because again, we use numbers in telling time. So the example I have here is e lima minute te leiva. E lima minute te leiva. And that just means there are 5 minutes past 9. So there, e lima, again, it introduces that sort of active number that we're talking about. E lima, lima means 5. Minute means minute. That one's not rocket science. Te leiva. Te means past, and then leiva just means the 9. So iva means 9, and la means le means the. All right, moving down to the letter E with a glottal in front of it. And again, the difference between these first two is it's very subtle, and I don't even know if I'm affecting it properly, but the first one would be e, and then the second one would just be a punch at the beginning. So e. And really the meaning of e, it's a second person singular descriptive pronoun. I'm going to link to a pronouns video up here. That should be helpful because it does get kind of complicated in Samoan, but it basically translates to you. And there's a specific place in the sentence that it goes. But our example here was sa e fai tauritusi. Sa e fai tauritusi. Sa is our past tense marker. E means you, and it's always preposed to the verb. Faitau in this case is our verb and it means to read. Letusi is the book. So this is just asking, did you read the book? Sa e faitau letusi. All right, third example, we're going to drop the glottal and put on a macron. Macrons just extend the sound of the vowel. So in this case, it's e. So there are two meanings here. It's kind of, e can be an irregular pronoun. So I don't have a video of this in the pronoun video because it's not used super often. It's used often enough, but it's just kind of a confusing construction. But basically, it kind of translates in English to like they who or those who. So it's a plural, third person, irregular pronoun is how I describe it. And then the example we have here is ia e whaalongo I e wa matatua ia oi. So ia e whaalongo I e wa matatua ia oi. So ia in this case it's like a command marker. E is with the glottal in front of it is the second person singular pronoun that we talked about before. So it means you. Whaalongo is the verb, means to hear. And then I e is to those. Ua matatua, ua is a tense marker. Matatua means more mature or older than ya oi. So ya actually means than in this case, and oi is again, it's a different form of the pronoun you. So what this all translates to is listen to those who are older than you. Some of you may have heard a similar pronoun of le, and le is the singular form of e. So e is those who or those who. I'm sorry, they who or those who, and le is he who or she who. It's sort of kind of uses the same construction. A little bit confusing. Let me know in the comments if you want me to do a video on that alone. Yeah, let me know. It can also mean like loud laughter. So you may have heard this, again, if you grew up in a Samoan home, you may have heard the plural form more often of toe, or the noun form of that same verb, which is toenga. And all it means is just, yeah, it's loud laughter. So you often hear the plural form more, I think, which is like like, man, those folks over there are just laughing so loud. But in the singular form, it kind of works as a regular verb. So our sentence here, our example is e pisa telele aliteine. E pisa telele aliteine. This just translates to, so a is a tense marker. Pisa means to be noisy. Tele is just a modifier of that verb. It just means very noisy. Le in this case is the. I'm treating a as a noun in this case. Le ariteni, of the girl. So this is just, man, the loud laughter of the girl is super obnoxious or loud. Pisa can kind of be like noisy, whatever, a disturbance. Anyway, hopefully that's clear. Finally, it's the letter E with a macron and a glottal. And really, I only know of one meaning for this one, and that's basically to kind of shout out. To me, it feels related to the laughter one, but it's more of a shout. It's not a laugh. So our example here would be sao e, excuse me, sao e sa ia fa leleo. And this just means I screamed basically until my voice cracked. So sa is our tense marker, o is our pronoun, e is our verb here, which is the one that means to shout out. Seia means until. Fa it's a verb, or I guess, yeah, it's a verb in Samoan. It just means your voice is hoarse. It's like that's the verb. And then leleo means the voice. So sao e sa ia fa leleo. I screamed until my voice was hoarse. All right, moving on. Homophones. Again, we got the same format. We got 4 different forms of the word o. The first one is no macron, no glottal, and really this just means of. There are basically 2 words for of, and I'll cover the second one in the next slide. This of is the of we use when we're describing what I'm calling an inalienable relationship, and I will go back to the pronouns video to understand what I mean by inalienable versus alienable. But basically, it just means something that really it's like a close relationship with the person. It can't easily be removed. It's a body part. It's a family member. It's not like a car or like your phone. if that makes sense. So our example here is ole atali'i o lo uso. Ole atali'i o lo uso. Now notice the first O here has a glottal in front of it. So that's not the O that I'm trying to demo in this case. It's the second O that's really demonstrating this meaning here. So ole atali'i o lo uso means it is the son of my brother. So le atali'i is the son, O is of, and then lo uso is my brother. Or if you're a woman, this would be of your sister. Uso is a same-sex sibling. All right, our second form of O has the glottal in front of it, which we saw an example of before, but now we'll explain what it means. So this is a pre-post particle, and it's really used to introduce nouns, particularly nouns that are not yet associated with a verb, or not associated, period, with a verb. And so an example of that would be the sentence we have here, and it'll demo both this meaning of O as well as the previous of meaning of O. So osimi, again, simi is it's just the name of a person. It's basically the Samoan form of Jim. And so far we haven't associated with a verb, so we're going to put O in front of it. It kind of introduces the noun. You can kind of think of it as being translated in English too, like it is. So osimi o le atali'i o pili, ai leo le atali'i o sama. So really this first clause here, and maybe I'll highlight it here. This first clause, I don't even know if I can highlight it. Right there, okay. Osimi, that's terrible. Let me erase that. Okay, at least, I think that's what I need to do, highlight. Okay, osimi o le atali'i means Jim is the son. So when we're just talking about nouns and we haven't really introduced a real Samoan verb, O kind of stands in place of the verb, and it usually means is or are, depending on the plurality or singularity of the nouns. So that first thing that I highlighted there, that's actually a full Samoan sentence. O simi o le atali'i. And I'll link to another video that talks about noun phrases, because that's what this is. This is a noun phrase. It basically just means Jim is the son. Now, the O that I'm going to highlight in green, this is the of O that we talked about above. So, osimi o le atali'i o pili, that means Jim is the son of Pili. I leo, I is but, leo, it's maybe a little bit more complicated, but basically it's the negative form of O. And basically, instead of meaning it is, it means it is not. So, ai leo le atali'i o sama. So, altogether, this sentence means Simi is the son of Pili, but not the son of Sama. So, a lot of O's. We have two O's in there. We've got the noun introductory O's, and we've got the of O's in there. But you can see that basically I have no verbs in this sentence, no real verbs in this sentence. This is all just a big complex noun phrase with ofs in it. But it all works. It's a full sentence in Samoan. It looks kind of complicated, but that's why I picked it as an example. So hopefully that makes sense. Let me know if you have questions in the comments. Okay, moving on down the line. Let's erase that. O, so just the macron and no glottal. O. This is just the plural form of alu, which means to go. So if you're talking about just you going somewhere, you can say, ite alu, you go. If you're talking about more than one person, you got to use the verb o. So like again, if for those of you that grew up in a Samoan speaking home, but maybe just didn't pick it up all the way, you probably heard a lot of times tato, kako. Yeah, you probably heard kako, not tato. That just means we go, let's get out of here. But basically you can drop it in. It's just a plural form of alu. Our last example here is with a macron and a glottal, and there's basically two meanings. One, it's a common response to when someone calls out your name. So in Samoan, if someone calls out your name, in English we might say, yeah, yeah, listening, what's up? Or if you're in the military, you might say like, over, I heard your call. In Samoan, you might say a couple different things. You could say, wow, and that just means it is I, or, I hear you. Some people will actually kind of make like a bird noise. They'll go, woo. It's kind of a high-pitched woo. I don't know. But let me know if I'm off base on that one. But that's what I remember hearing. And then you could also hear people say, oh, it's just sort of like, yeah, what's up? I hear you. So anyway, you might hear that often enough. The other thing, it's also a demonstrative, and I've got a video on that as well, so I'll try and link it up in the corner there. But what that means, it just kind of means there. So the example we have here is sei sei tu yo. Sei is a command marker. Tu is the verb to stand. I is like at, and then o in this case is over there. So it basically means just go stand over there. Sei tu yo. Anyway, I'll link to the demonstrative lesson or video, whatever you want to call it. All right, last slide. This is a longer video than I was intending. My apologies. All right, homophones. Same setup. We got 4 different forms of it. No glottal, no macron, with a glottal, with the macron only, and then with both macron and glottal. So as I mentioned before, it is the other word that we can use for of. In contrast to o, this denotes a alienable relationship with the object. So in this case, the sentence I have here is "Ore ta'avale alo uso." This means it is the car of my brother, or if you're a girl speaking, it'd be of your sister. But again, ta'avale is not part of you. You can sell it. So the relationship should be alienable, and that's why we're using a here instead of o. So a can also be a post-pose emphasizer. You actually, again, if you grew up in a Samoan speaking home, you probably hear this all the time. So I don't even know if this is common like slang anymore, but like when I was, serving my mission, everybody would say seki, sekia, and seki just means like, it means, hey, you're all set. It's all good. It's kind of what the slang would kind of mean. Some people would even say sequelia. Anyway, you put an a after that word, and it really just, it's an emphasizer. So you might say sekia, oi, hey, you're awesome, you're the best is kind of what that means. You could say seki oi, which means like you're cool, man, whatever. Seki oi is just an emphasizer. You often hear too, this isn't necessarily slang, but people might say like sa'oa, like sa'o means right, or and so sa'oa means like right on. Anyway, hopefully that makes sense. If you guys know about the examples, go ahead and put them in the comments. Okay, so a with a glottal in front of it. So a, again with that punch. This basically means when, and this is not really the question, like when, like what time kind of when. This is more of, although it can be, I'll give an example of how that kind of factors in. But it can also just mean, hey, when I go to bed, I do X, Y, Z. So it doesn't have to be the question. So maybe I'll better just go through the examples. So the examples I have here are, so this sentence, basically this first clause, and I'll go ahead and highlight it. This basically says when you go to the store, and it basically translates just like that. A is when, e is our pronoun for you, alu is our verb to go for singular, ile is to the, falioloa is the store or house of goods. So that's how you can use when, and that's called the dependent clause in this case if you guys are into grammar. The independent clause in this case, I'll go ahead and highlight it green here. Not part of our, word that we're highlighting, but ia maua ni fa'ifa mole. Ia is it takes the place of a tense marker. It's a command marker. Maua is our verb, which means to get. Ni is an article, which means some. Fa'i is a noun, which is bananas. And then fa'amone just means please. So this basically translates to get some bananas. So altogether, it means when you go to the store, get some bananas, please. So that's kind of how it can be used there. It can also be used when we're talking about like the question of when. So the example I have here is afea te alwai. Afea te alwai. So fea is like kind of like fia in the sense that it's a question word that kind of takes the place of what you're asking about. So in this case, you're asking about a time, and so fea is basically, it's not just time because it can be a location as well, but it's kind of taking the place of the thing that we want to know about. So when is it? It's kind of how it translates to. So a is when, Thea is kind of like, I'll just call it, is it? Ite alway. Let's see here, sorry about that. So when are you going is what that literally translates to. Ite is e is the pronoun, te is the tense marker, alu is to go, and then I have a video on that. It's basically a postposed, I don't know what it's called, but I'm gonna link a video to it. All right, sorry about that. All right, moving on. Let's see here. With just a macron, So this basically is the question word for what. So just like fe is a stand-in for like when or where, is the stand-in for like a thing or like a what, like an object that you're asking about. So an example here is just a standard sort of question in Samoan. It says "Oleale me faleton." So again, those of you growing up in a Samoan home, you probably heard this. It roughly translates to, "Hey, what's the problem?" It literally translates to ole. O is sort of like that introductory particle o that we learned about. So it is the what, the thing that is not right. That's what this literally translates to. So oleale mea, what is the thing? That's how that translates to. Oleale mea, and then fa'ale tonu is just a modifier of mea. Fa'ale tonu basically translates to the thing that is not quite good or not quite right. Just means basically what's wrong, what seems to be the problem. You could also see in like another common sort of Samoan question, ealiaso. Ealiaso. It basically means it is the what, the day. It just means how's the day going. Again, is just sort of it's a general question word, typically would translate to what, but you hear it in a few different weird constructions that you may not otherwise think of it. And then our last example is Ue alusia. Ue alusia. It basically means ua is a tense marker, e is a pronoun for you, alu again is to go, ise is basically to, and then is our what. So you have gone to what is kind of what that translates to. Anyway, hopefully that's helpful. But again, you hear all the time as what. It's just I tried to introduce a few different ways that you might see it in a sentence. The easiest way to translate the word what into Samoan is just by saying olea. But you see it in other places as well, which is why I want to show it there. Finally, with a macron and a glottal. Basically, that is a short version of our future tense marker olea. Sounds very similar to the question what. The difference is just the macron in the front. Again, hopefully I'm affecting that correctly, but if not, maybe overemphasize it yourself. So olea is the future tense marker. Is just the short version of it, and you do hear it in certain cases. For example, the example that I have here, asau sefa tayau. Asau sefa tayau. Basically, this means will Sefa come tomorrow is basically what it means. Sefa is just a name. It's basically a short version of Yosefa, which is the English sort of, or the Samoan version of Joseph. So will Sefa come tomorrow? You could have also said olea sao sefa tayau. You could have said olea instead of but it's fine to drop off the ole as well. Anyway, hopefully this is helpful. My idea is that maybe you hear all these words, they sound exactly the same, but they seem to mean wildly different things. And in fact, they do mean wildly different things. There actually are subtle differences in the pronunciation. It can be hard to pick up on those. So I thought I'd try and introduce sort of how that might come into play. A lot of these actually are common, some are less common. So you may not actually hear them all the time, but a lot of these you actually will hear all the time. So hopefully that was helpful. Again, if it was, if you made it this far in the video, like, subscribe, give me a comment. I always like to hear if these things are helpful or not. So I appreciate everyone watching. Thanks. Bye.